Halo, Episode 1, Contact. In the year 2552, humans on the planet Madrigal have been fighting for independence from Earth, but a fatal encounter with alien Covenant complicates things. Master Chief John 117 and his super soldier Spartans join the fight. After the battle, Master Chief heads to his home planet of Reach with a Madrigal survivor and a mysterious object he discovered on the planet. But a controversial order has John questioning his mission and himself. Hello and welcome to the Campfire Gaming Podcast review of the Halo TV series. This week we will be covering Episode 1 and our thoughts and opinions on this episode. Joining me today is the one, the only, Rich. Yay! And first time ever on the Campfire Gaming Podcast, Heather. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
We're excited to have you and to discuss the Halo TV series with you. Before we dive in, we will like to point out we will be digging into every aspect of this episode. So if you have not watched it yet, be sure to press pause, go watch it, and then come back because this will be filled with many, many spoilers. So you've been warned.
Yeah, this is gonna be spoilerific.
It's gonna be pretty spicy too, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Lastly, before we kick it off here, be sure to check out our website, campfiregamingpodcast.com, where you can find links to all our socials, such as Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and everything else. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what we're doing good, tell us what we're doing bad. You know, basically just chat with us. We love hearing from you. You can also find a link to our Discord on our website there. We basically spend the entire week chatting video games and sometimes some other bullshit. So we'd love to have you talk or come by and chat. We also will sometimes play games with you too. Maybe Halo. Maybe.
That's not infinite.
Exactly. Maybe a good Halo. But anyways, let's dive. Are you guys ready? You ready to kick this off?
Oh, I'm ready. Let's do this.
All right. So I guess first off, this is I guess we've been waiting like probably 15 years for some sort of Halo show or movie. Like I'm trying to remember, was it Landfall for 3? Was that the first
for Halo?
time?
Yeah, that was for Halo 3. It was Landfall, and they did a bunch of live action. You know, all the advertising for Halo 3 was phenomenal, right? Like it was all like live action. They had a cool they had Neil Blomkamp doing that a lot of those battle scenes leading up to Halo 3. Oh man, like, and that stuff was super good. And then they had that Believe campaign, that ad campaign that was working out super, super well. So I mean, yeah, it's since from then to now, we haven't really had a lot of really good. Oh no, that's not true, because they also had the ODST ads as well. Were also like they were also live action, and they were pretty.
Yeah,
like, there was one ad I think, but it was pretty sick.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean we've kind of been teased for quite a while with not only the rumors of movies and shows and. God, I think this show was first announced in, was it 2013 at one of the fabled Xbox One launch announcement, or the Xbox reveal back then when it was all TV. So yeah, I mean it's finally here, and I know we've kind of I think we were all cautiously optimistic as we were waiting for it to debut.
Well, I mean, leading up to it, when we first started seeing some of the trailers and stuff for it, I think you and I had a pretty like warm reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is coming off of, I think this was shortly after or shortly before Halo Infinite came out, and so you and I were kind of like we were already pretty skeptical about seeing this show. I mean, I suppose, yeah, let's kind of get into it a little bit with So before we start talking about the show, I mean, like, let's go over our general experiences with Halo, right? Like, Matt, I know like you're like the hardcore lore nerd. you like the books, all that stuff, right?
Correct. Yeah. I'm probably, at least far as the podcast is concerned, yeah, probably kind of the resident lore person. I know I've kind of dropped off a bit. I blame 343 for that. Their lore and storytelling has kind of not been as exciting. So I know I've probably lost a little bit of a touch there as far as the lore. But yeah, I mean, I think I've read majority of the books at this point. Watch a lot of, I've, yeah, consumed a lot of the media outside the game, we'll just say.
Sure.
But
And then, so yeah, for me, I mean, I think if you've been listening to the podcast long enough, I think you know that me and Matt are both very big Halo fans. I mean, I've been playing Halo since, Halo CE back on the Xbox since, not too long after it launched. I think it was like that Christmas we got our Xbox and started playing that. And then I haven't really done a lot of this, like I haven't read a lot of the books or anything like that, or consumed a lot of like the extended universe sort of media for it. I play the games, mostly just like the Halo main titles, not so much like Halo Wars or Spartan
mhm.
Assault or anything like any of the side stuff. I haven't really played a lot of.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I think that's mostly I play Halo because I like the competitive nature of it. So like I liked playing in tournaments when I was in high school and things like that. I liked playing, like the MLG playlists, and I've been doing that for every Halo iteration. I've been playing it pretty competitively. So
Yeah. How about your experience, Heather? What's your how deep does your love go for the Halo
How deep does
franchise?
my love go? That's a loaded question here. I'm probably your Halo normie. Maybe you're like I'm not as deep into it as you guys are. I've played the games. Um, I honestly never even finished five, and I never played six because my computer can't even run six. It could if they allowed me.
6 being Halo Infinite, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I don't think anybody would hold it against you for not finishing 5.
Yeah.
Especially the campaign, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm talking strictly campaign wise. I mean, I've played some competitive Halo, not a ton. I'm probably, like I said, I'm probably like the normie here. Like I'm not deep into the lore. I don't consume any of that stuff. When it comes out, I'm like, oh, that looks cool. I'll play it for a while. I have fun for a little bit, and then I move on to my next game. Like I'm not like Halo. I need to have this. I'm not anywhere you were rich levels. So I think I'm the normie aspect.
No, I think that's a good thing, though. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a we have a pretty nice range of perspectives when approaching this show. I mean, I think the goal for the show, it's hard to say whether it was going to appeal to a Halo diehard fan base or they were trying to rope a bunch of new people into the franchise, because this is they're following the silver timeline, or what they call the silver timeline, right,
Yeah.
man? Like,
Yeah,
so that means like
I was just gonna say a little background on the silver timeline is as you would expect when we've seen this throughout time, in movies with all sorts of IPs, is you are going to deviate from, the books or the games or whatever when you turn them, put them on a new medium, like in this case, television. So they've it's basically kind of set, it's still Halo, but they're going to deviate. It's a different timeline. It's technically, you might see some similarities between events or people. Obviously there's Master Chief in this, just like in the games. But they did want to kind of separate it out so they could make some different creative decisions, as far as the TV show is concerned.
and boy do they make a lot of them.
Yes.
Quite a
And I
lot
think
of
that's one of
them.
those questions we'll chat about more throughout the episode, is kind of, who was this for, and does it do a good job, whatever, pulling, pleasing either existing fans or pulling in new ones.
Hmm. Cool. So let's dive into it then.
Yeah, let's go.
Start on this episode. So I guess we open up with probably the first. I don't know. I guess like I said, we were saying it's going to get kind of spicy, but the first 15 minutes of this first episode, I think, is probably the only good part of the episode, and I think a lot of people would probably agree with that. So we open up with we're on Madrigal. We see a little bit of the resistance people kind of bantering back and forth. We kind of see a little bit how they live, and we get introduced to a couple of the I don't know, some of the like the leadership of this resistance cell on
Yep.
Madrigal, and then we learn a little bit of like they talk a little bit about the Spartans and how they're like they're legendary and all that, and they make fun of some kid because he's like, I could take a Spartan or something like that. Like he doesn't, yeah. Um, and then that's kind of when like a lot of like the trailer footage starts to happen. Is it breaks into we meet what is her name,
Quan Ha.
Quan
Yeah,
Ha,
like
yeah.
Ha or
Yep.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so Quan Ha, and she's the daughter of one of the leaders of the resistance cell, and she's hanging out with her friends. You see a Covenant Phantom kind of off in the distance, and next thing you know, you see that Quan Ha and her friends are getting roasted by plasma. So they start running away, and they are getting chased by. You can tell what they. I mean, you can tell what they are. They're a bunch of elites. They're getting
Yep.
chased by a bunch of elites, and they're shooting
Hmm.
plasma rifles at them. And that's kind of where like I guess you could say the good part of the show sort of opens up, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, I think once the Covenant kind of enter the show there and start attacking the teens that were out exploring, like you get what, probably a good 10-15 minutes there of just a bloodbath.
Yeah. And it's
But a
like
really
there,
cool bloodbath.
yeah, but and it was just I thought it was funny that they've established Quan Ha as just like the thing that she's good at is just finding drugs.
Yeah. 'Cause- yeah.
Like that,
I
like
I
they,
do I, I do feel that they like undersold her meaning to me, like that, like you said, you open up with her like finding, like she's great for finding drugs and finding this like rare plant, and then like she's just kind of along for the ride everywhere. Like she's supposed to be a pivotal character, but they do zero building with her
Yeah.
whatsoever. You just know she's angsty.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
want to
just
live
like,
here anyway.
yeah, I don't want to be here. I'm gonna get
Yeah.
off this place.
yeah, it's just the way they kind of intro her. You guys, you hit it on the nail on the head there. Is it's just like, yeah, just all she's good at is finding drugs. I just think back to like other shows, like heck, even something recently when you're like introduced to somebody like Ray and in the new Star Wars movies, right? You realize, she's jumping around a Star Destroyer, right? Oh, she's a scavenger. She's, crafty. She can get around. She's right, and then a little bit later you see her fighting. Here it's just like, well, Quan Ha, well, she can find drugs and she's observant of purple spaceships in the sky. So,
Well,
Yeah,
and she's like super lucky and very defiant.
yep.
That's what you know about her. She doesn't listen to her dad. She's got this, screw the government attitude about her that you find out later.
Yeah.
Like you don't there's nothing else you learn about her. She's just a literal who.
yeah, and so it was really funny that they were just out there just trying to trip balls on
Mm-hmm.
space shrooms, and then they're just getting roasted by plasma. So don't do
It
drugs,
honest,
kids. You're gonna get roasted by
yeah.
elites.
And since a lot of those characters came off annoying, what happened to them? Like, I felt nothing. I actually felt a little bit more joy. I was like, good, I'm not going to see you again in this show, right? There are these angsty kids doing drugs that, I think that's one thing they said early, and it'll be interesting to see. I assume they're going to continue this throughout the show. This show is brutal, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I think
it's gory, or it's it's very violent.
the first like action shot we get is one of the teens getting her head blown off with a plasma shot. And it's just like, yeah. And then obviously we get another about 30 to 60 seconds of, I think pretty much everybody, all the other teens died. Yeah. Cause Quan Ha was the only one that made it back to the
Mhm.
settlement.
Mhm.
And they're all just getting just burned up by plasma, which I think is one of the cooler things. I'm glad they're getting into being that brutal and gory because, that's kind of what plasma does. It's just kind of, I mean, I guess they're just small little humans without any sort of body armor, but it just kind of burn you away like that. So seeing that aspect that you really only get in like the lore, the books, seeing that in the screen was kind of fun.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, because you're seeing like limbs and stuff kind of getting blown off too. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the teens, as they're running away, she gets like a leg blown off by a
Yep.
by a plasma shot. Yeah. So Quan Ha ends up running back to where the resistance base is, and she's screaming and hollering and things like that. And I think some of the people on the outer battlements or whatever of the wall, because the whole like encampment is encircled by a big stone wall, is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so they alert, alarms go off, Quan
Yeah, she
Ha
sets
runs
off a
in.
flare.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
She
Yeah,
sets
she
off a
sets
flare
off
to
a
warn them.
flare and then comes screaming back at them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which puts the base on alert. Which I mean, it kind of leads to a part that, like, I was never like in the military. I'm not some grand tactician or anything, but it frustrates me when shows don't even try. It seems like everybody just gathers in front of the gate.
Yeah,
Like,
but I think this is different. Like this is like that untrained militia. Like they're not military. They're just simply a resistance group. So it's fine to me that they don't know guerrilla warfare and no proper cover and no
but I
like they're
mean,
not prim and proper soldiers because they're just a bunch of people that are kind of saying "f you" to the government and
yeah, but
trying
like
not to let
nobody
anyone
ran
in.
up on the walls. No, you had the small little group on top of the gate looking out. But I mean, these are, again, you don't get this because this is the first episode and who knows how deep they get into it. But of a lot of these insurrectionists, insurgents, the little people that are against the UNSC, yeah, they're not like trained soldiers. At least not all of them are. But like they are crafty, kind of, they know how to fight. They're scrappy. So to just see them
Sure.
all bundle up in front of a gate, just it's like.
And then the gate just gets annihilated too.
I think part of that is like their set design, to be honest with you, because like it doesn't look like I didn't get defensible like position. I got like hideaway community type of a thing, and
Yeah.
so that's I think part of it is like they don't sell that they're truly against the government. They're just kind of like trying to be off grid. It's like being off grid when you
Yeah.
have an email and a smartphone. Like
Mhm.
they're just saying that they're against the government because
Just leave
like
us
if
alone. Yeah, we
yeah,
haven't got
like
the
if you look
guns.
at like the walls and stuff like that, like they don't have like these really ornate or a lot of places to kind of like overlook. They don't have patrols and stuff like that. Like they never set any of that up. They never set up like anything, like they don't have patrols out in the woods because otherwise how are these teenagers getting out there because they're not supposed to be out there. Like that's kind of the thing that they give at the beginning. They're getting high and they snuck out to go get high, right? But there's no patrols that they have to worry about or anything like that. They don't run into anybody out patrolling when stuff hits the fan. Like it doesn't scream like true rebel. It just screams like defiant child.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think you're right. One thing that kind of sells that is that Madrigal, at least for their encampment, seems like it's more of like a hydrogen farm, isn't it? Is what they mentioned that it's supposed to be. Like they're talking about how the UNSC comes and like steals all the hydrogen or whatever, and
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I
You
mean that
think
makes
though
sense.
they would have been a little bit better again,
Yeah,
put a couple more people up the wall, look around, or especially if you're that scared of the UNSC coming,
right.
but
I think
Because
that's
they,
minor compared to some of the other grievances.
yeah.
yes, yes. Well, because it was just funny that they did the whole Star Wars thing where they're all aiming at the door or whatever, and
Yep.
they're waiting for
Yeah.
the. Some people are just kind of standing out in the open. Some people are on these big turrets, and then they just they just break down the entire wall of that's on that side. They just crumble the whole thing,
Yeah.
and so it just gets annihilated. And then you see the battle kicks off, and you see a bunch of elites start pouring in from the front, and they they just jump over the walls. I don't really know why they decided to even go through the gate.
Yeah. Which was kind of, I mean, a bunch of them went. Yeah, I don't know. It was odd.
Just
I'm
shock
not
and
an
awe.
expert on how high the elites can jump, but I mean, I know from the games that the jackals can jump pretty high. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, do you see the thighs on some of those elites? They are some
dude,
pretty
okay,
thick boys.
yeah, I had that in my notes. These are some thick boys, man.
These are some
Like,
thick elites.
and honestly, I'm gonna ask you guys this question because the first moment, I don't know if they've got names or whatever, but most of the elites were wearing blue armor, but the first elite that kind of came through the door had more of a reddish armor. For
Yeah.
some reason, my brain went, "Oh, the Krogans showed up from
From
Mass Effect."
Yeah.
But yeah, damn, those guys are some thick boys. It
So
was
they
crazy. But
got
yeah,
they
they
got
just started
jump.
murdering everybody.
Yep. Yeah, and so you get like a really fun, I don't know, like a 15-minute scene of like a bunch of chaos happening and elites killing people and
Mm-hmm.
like what this was kind of one of the we're gonna probably touch on this a little bit later, but they open up with like 2 of those like mounted machine guns,
Yep.
like those mounted Gatling guns, just sitting like laying into the elites, and you can see that like they're landing shots. It's just the shields on the elites are just eating all of it.
Yep.
So it was just kind of it's funny that they like the humans don't really end up killing anybody. Like they don't kill any of the elites. Not one resistance person I think ends up landing a killing blow on an elite at all.
No, it was just a massacre of
Yeah.
the elites, or the elites massacring the humans.
Yeah,
Yeah. And quite literally. Like at some point, like they open a door and there's a bunch of like kids and people just like huddled inside, and they just kind of open fire on the whole room.
I think they called it a vault, and the whole time I'm going, this is just 2 doors shut with a plank over it. To keep it
Did they really call it a vault?
I'm pretty sure they did. And then like Quan Ha was in there, and then she just climbs out a little hole in the roof. I'm like, okay, like
real secure.
I think it was, I think they said go get like all the women and children, go hop in the vault or whatever, right? You know.
I mean, that adds more to that, like, this isn't a defensible place, right? Like, this is literally just a slaughterhouse. Like, who is hoping to hide away and fight off literally everybody leaves themselves inside a gated construct with no way out, and you're 2 doors and a beam in front of it.
Yeah.
With holes in your roof. Like,
they basically put like a sign on the front of the door that said "Please don't enter" or something. That's basically what it was.
It's so I think what they're trying to do, right? Like they're trying to inspire some shock in you, but really it just looks like a bad horror movie, you know, where they like
it does.
You know, like those Geico commercials. Head for the cemetery. Like it's kind of like that, like.
But there's a car running over. Yeah, no, like
exactly. That's what it feels like. Like, why does she run back to the camp when she gets free of them? Like, clearly that's a worse position than where she is. Like, that just kind of makes me shake my head.
Yeah. And I mean, and they're all getting annihilated until
superhero landing, right?
Yeah. Until the big man MC shows up himself, right? Yeah, and he does a proper superhero landing on the. From a pelican into the middle of the whole battlefield.
It just felt like one of those, like, all I could hear in my head was Ryan Reynolds from Deadpool.
He's going to do a superhero landing. He's going to do a superhero landing.
And then he does.
Yep.
And then from there, what is that? A silver team drops in, you know, MC, what are the other guys' names? Kai, Vanek, and Riz. You know, they start kind of proving
weird names.
Yeah, that they can kill some of these elites. I did find it interesting for a little bit. I think they were about to shoot. Was it? I think Quan Ha's dad, Jin Ha, was about to shoot at Chief until he realized that they were there to kind of help.
Yeah, he did.
And then they were all
he
buddy
does
buddy.
Shoot at him.
Yeah,
he does shoot at him right off the bat. Like, or he basically yells out "Spartan," and then he starts shooting at him, and then realizes that. He just jumped. He just did a goofy CGI leap over the car, over the elite, and kills the elite by leaping over him.
Yeah.
But if they know that humans don't kill Spartans, why is he even bothering? Like,
I think it's just that whole, well, the UNSC are here. You know,
might as well fight it, I guess.
You know,
I guess.
Maybe he thought the weird purple and red Krogan elite looking bros were there with the Spartans to help kill him. I don't know. But yeah, it was only what 5 seconds, because then Chief runs, does a weird little, what was that? That's the little like somersault jump over him and the elite, and he kills the elite. And then that's whenever Jin Ha was just like, oh, he's here to help.
Yeah, they give each other like the nod.
Yeah.
You know, like hey, you know, like that sort of a nod.
Sup.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how like awkward it was to see the power armor, like see them try and move in the power armor, where like half the time they were really acrobatic and half the time they looked like half clunky and stuff like that. And like I get power armor is supposed to, like, that armor is supposed to weigh like literal like thousands of tons, like it's heavy, right? But like they didn't know how to handle it, because like I don't even know which one it is. male not Master Chief Spartan 1 jumps onto like that truck, it makes like this weird like clunk sound and looks so awkward to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you've got like just now you were talking about like Master Chief's able to like flip over cars and do all this kind of stuff. And then like when they're walking later on in scenes, like it just looks like it's paint like hard to walk in. It looks awkward. It just looks awkward and
I think that's where it just makes me wonder. I know CGI is expensive, but sometimes where the money went, because those suits, I mean, whenever it was a human in a suit, which the suits standing still or in pictures look pretty decent, but in motion, it's so clunky. And then for whatever reason, the CGI, when they're doing their crazy, weird acrobatic stuff, just doesn't look good in today's standards. It's just, and there was definitely a disconnect there. Especially too, like you're saying, with the fluid motion of the CGI and the clunkiness of the real human and the made up armor. So
yeah, well, I mean, you can tell that right away too. The second that Master Chief starts running at the elite to like do the jump and twirl over him, there's two shots of that. The first shot is CGI and it looks like he starts doing like a really like hard sprint, and then it cuts back to him and it looks like he's kind of doing like a mild jog, because you can tell it's not CGI anymore. Like he's running more like a normal person, and the CGI version of him looks like he's running a bit like weird, like a bit erratic. Like in this show, you can really tell when they're using CG versus when they are not.
Yeah. And also this is, we'll dig into a little bit more of this but later, but like it's not just the movement of the Spartans. There's some other times where the CGI is just like, head scratching. But like, I think the thing that disappointed me a little bit about, even though as the audience and watching through this the first time, you're distracted by kind of the craziness of it all. But when I watched it a second time, the thing that just kind of bugs me, and there might not be a good way to do this on video or on the television, but the Spartans are much more faster and agile. They're super soldiers, right? And the whole time they're fighting these elites, especially when you get into some of like the hand-to-hand stuff, it just feels so slow and clunky. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that's cool, like what he did, but it just, again, somebody who's played the games and knows, about the, the Spartan armor and all that stuff. And I get, you might argue that, well, as a Master Chief or a Spartan in the video games, it's not like you're going that much faster than your Marine bros, but I don't know. It just felt just sluggish a lot of the times when they were fighting.
I would agree with that. Like, I definitely felt it definitely, to rip again on Star Wars, like the scooter gang kind of fight. Like everyone's on a rascal going really slow motion, but it's supposed to be real cool.
Yeah,
I felt a lot of that here too, and I also felt like with like some of their sound effects, like they tried to jam so many like member berries into this fight scene. They're like, oh, his shield's down. Let's show the shield.
Play the sound.
Yeah. Play the sound, do the thing, and there's so many things where it's just like, yep, I remember that from the game. Yep, I remember that game. That halfway through, you're like, and I remember that from the game, and I remember that from I got it. Like I felt it was very like front loaded with sound effects, and then as you went on, they didn't care anymore. They're like, we hit our quota. we probably put like 10 sound effects from the game in there. Yeah, that's good, right?
Well, see, like, I'd actually disagree, because the only ones I really heard were the health, like in the shield, and then a little bit later on with the active camo.
They did it with the,
I was sitting here thinking of, like, if you're trying to create some familiarity with the franchise that exists, it's a different timeline. To me, I am so confused why a lot of the plasma pistols, maybe the shield hits, a lot of the guns, they're not sounds right out of the game. Like, cool, you did the shield and the active camo, but like a lot, like the pistol doesn't sound like the pistols in the game. It's just,
which version of the game?
Well, I guess any of them, right? I'd be happy with any of them. To me, a lot of the sound effects just sounded generic, right? Again, you could do a lot with this. You're already doing it visually with a lot of familiarity, you know, like, oh, obviously Chief is easily recognizable, but you could trick my brain into liking this a little bit more by using any of the sounds of the last 20 years in the game other than just two, you know. Again, it was good member berry time, so it's like, oh, shield's down, oh, it's recharging.
Yeah.
But like, I was sitting here going like, that doesn't sound like a BR, that doesn't sound like a plasma pistol or plasma, right, you know, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, sure, I don't think the guns were on sound point, but there were a couple other ones that sounded
yeah,
that like I said, I had those like, here, let's shove in some member berries for you.
yep,
Yeah. I mean, like, and I think this was something that Matt, you and I had kind of mentioned, or something that you and I had talked about when we were getting ready for this show, is that on a previous episode I mentioned about how I think this show is really going to be Halo on just a surface level,
yeah,
and it even barely seems to be reaching that. You know, like it's just, if you were to take Master Chief and like redesign the elites, it's basically not a Halo show anymore. Like
it's not,
yeah,
yeah,
like that's about as far as it goes into like Halo. And it gets that way. You start to realize that even more as the episode goes on too, because
yeah,
after this battle, um, this is where they start really diverging away from what maybe some of us fans of the games are really used to, because like once the battle is over and the Spartans kind of leave, like they basically just, they don't check to see if there's any survivors or anything like that. I guess they just know that everybody's just dead. So they
yeah,
just,
well,
they just leave. They're just like, okay, cool, we're out. And then they go and they try to find the the Phantom where the Covenant came in on. So they
mhm.
try to find where the Covenant came from. And so they like, I thought it was really funny that like they couldn't see the Phantom until like
Yeah,
they got like right underneath it, and then one of the Spartans is like, Chief, Phantom, right, and points like right in the air, and it's like, oh yes,
yeah,
that is a Phantom, yes.
yeah. None of our sensors, nothing picked that up, you know. We didn't see it from walking up that it's, you know, above the tree line, you know.
Mm-hmm.
uh but yeah, I mean, that was, yeah,
So
but
they
yeah,
like, yeah,
they
and
head
then
to this cave, yeah,
yeah, they head into the cave, and then that's when they find some sort of like artifact. Master Chief touches it. He starts getting a bunch of memories from like his, I guess, his childhood and all that before.
hmm,
I don't know. See, this is the problem with this whole silver timeline thing, because I don't know what they're going to implicate by a lot of this. Like, I'm guessing, yes, like they got taken as kids, just like they did in the games and the
yep,
books. But I don't know how far into that lore they're going to go, because they've already changed a few things.
yeah,
Notably, I think one of the things that I was like, I raised an eyebrow about is that, well, one, none of the humans know what the Covenant are. Like the Madrigal people, like they were all
yep,
confused as to what the hell these aliens were. They didn't know what it was. And so, and two, one of the aliens refers to Master Chief as the demon. And I'm like, as far as I remember in the games, like they don't actually start referring to him as a demon until Halo 2. Like that's about the time where they start calling him Demon, and they call him Demon because he blew up the first Halo ring, because it was, it's sacred. It was a sacred religious thing for the Covenant, and he destroyed it. So they refer to him as Demon.
yeah. I think it's been a while since I read the early books, but I believe they refer, again, now you're talking, well, you know, we're just via the game, yeah, it's only Halo 2, but extended lore, I think called him Demon in the books. But again, a lot of those books came after Halo CE was out and became successful, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they probably weren't thinking about that when they were making the first game.
Gotcha. So they
But
kind of retcon that into.
I believe so. Again, it's been a while since I read those early books, but I think they were known as demons early on.
Got it.
But yeah, I mean,
Okay.
to your point, it's just like, yeah,
Right.
uh, it's just odd.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was just weird.
there's a bunch of things in this timeline I'm not sure of. Like, when you say silver timeline, to me, like, based off of what I was seeing and what I know of the lore, which, say, with take that with a grain of salt, because it's not a ton. It's not anything compared to you guys. Like, I'm still confused as to like where we are.
Hmm.
We were kind of chit chatting about this a little bit earlier about this too, but like, we're at Mark 6 armor already, and we talked about how like Master Chief was I'm good boy, I'm good soldier, I do what I'm supposed to, and for the longest time, and and here he doesn't like we were talking about, like he doesn't, like he already is defying orders and stuff like that. So like
Yeah.
I'm very confused as to where we sit in the timeline, even in the silver timeline here, right? Like I'm with you. I fully agree with like what you're saying, Rich. Like I'm just kind of lost
Yeah.
in that
No,
sense.
that's that's the thing. As I sat back and kind of was pondering that question of like, who is this for? Because this, much like the Halo Infinite game, these are supposed to be good entry points in the Halo franchise for newcomers.
Right.
And like, again, to me, I can piece some of this stuff together because I read the lore, played the games, blah blah. But I'm sitting there like you, like new people, like they must be super confused, like what's going on. With Chief, like, oh, here's this cool bro, he's a cool guy, doesn't afraid of anything, and all of a sudden now he's just going AWOL, right? Just because he touched a rock and so some chick with a bad haircut was, yelling at him, right?
That
Yeah,
haircut was
yeah.
bad.
So he touches that rock, and we see we see an elite running away from it. And this is where I get another like silly nitpick, is that like the elite runs away and just hops into a conveniently parked banshee somewhere
Yep.
over a hill somewhere, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess there was just a banshee there. They didn't
Yep.
see that on their way over to the Phantom, nor did they use it when attacking this little fort.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
but
is, well,
there's definitely a lot of conveniences and a lot of lazy writing, in my opinion.
yes.
At least in the whole, like in episode one. Maybe it'll get better as we come along, but there's a lot of grievances I have. Just
Yeah.
like things I was noting along the way of just how convenient and how like they were trying, like they made it obvious in some places that they're just like conveniencing things in, like the things we've
Yep.
already mentioned, right? And then
Mhm.
there's a couple of other places as well, right, where it's just convenience factor all throughout this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other portion is like there's a lot of like trying to get a lot of shock and awe out of this, right? The blow
Yep.
through the gates, but then we don't use the gates. They like, oh yeah, spoiler, we're gonna murder um what is it, Quan Ha, but we're gonna try and build some rapport and then murder her, and then oh yeah, but guess what? The good soldier doesn't do what he's supposed to. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
this whole series, like you guys keep bringing up like you're not sure who this is for. To me, this is for people who don't don't either haven't really touched the games in a long time, but or are just like not current fans. Because if you know anything about the the gameplay, the lore, the characters, any of that stuff, I feel like you're kind of left scratching your head going, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a lot more of like, it's kind of like those Star Wars spin-offs, right? Like these characters exist. They're in this universe, but it's not really for the hardcore fans like you, Matt. It's not for the hardcore game fans like you, Rich. It's more for like the normies who don't really know what's going on. They're like, oh yeah, I've seen Master Chief before. Oh yeah, I've seen an Elite before. Like that's a pretty iconic enemy and stuff like that. Like, forget that there are no grunts with the Elites like they are in literally every game, and that there's no jackals. And let's see what happens when we get our first hunter, if those exist in this universe. You know what I mean? Like, um, there's a lot of like, hey, I know this thing exists. Just like the like some of the music choices at the end and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of that in here, but I don't think it's for the main like fan base. This is to try and get people interested in Halo, but they're kind of doing it with really lazy writing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's break into that a little bit too. Some of the music is, you can tell that they were kind of using some of the game's music, but it is nothing like what you would think of when you would hear it. I think when you and I when we watched this, I mentioned this, and tell me if you heard it after your second viewing, Matt. But yeah, they did. I think in the intro song they use a slight portion of "Never Forget"
Yeah.
into it. Did you hear
No,
it?
there was that, and just a little bit at the end with like the Gregorian chant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit here and there. And again, so this falls in line with the sound effects comment I had. You have 20 years, like the one thing you could argue whatever you want about how you loved or hated any of the mainline games. Uh, the music has never disappointed. Even 343. That's the one thing,
Right.
it's a little different. It's not
Even
Marty O'Donnell and Mike
right.
Salvatore, but like it's been good. And the fact that we only get like a little subtle hint of it here with the little intro song and a little bit of Gregorian chant at the end, I'm going like, this is insane. Even oh god, what was it? Well, I think it was still during this fight scene. It might have been a little later during the action packed scene. We should just get through the rest of the episode here and pick apart some of the
and
stuff.
dive
But
dive into it. Yeah,
yeah,
because
but
Sorry, that's my bad. I
no,
keep
it's all
moving
of us.
aside.
This is how we do it. We do it with book clubs this way too.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But real quick, like later in at one point, there's some like action music going, and I'm like, it's generic, right?
Yes.
And I'm going,
Mhm.
holy shit! Why didn't you use any of the cool, intense soundtracks, whatever to portray whatever feeling you're trying to get across to the audience with this scene from any of the Halo games, right? Like, it blew my mind with, again, there's little things you could have done. You could have still made all these crazy changes, and it's a silver timeline, but like you could, you're already doing it with Master Chief's armor, some of the weapons, putting things like that in there, some of the enemies, right? Again, you could even trick the audience more by putting in more sound effects, putting in like music that's just going to pull you in, and as weird as it sounds, trigger some of those emotions you had while playing those games in the last 20 years if you played the campaign, right? Campaigns. So, but yeah, it's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you too. That was one of my biggest grievances as well. Sorry, Rich, I kind of cut you off. But that was my biggest thing too. Is like you already have this highly recognizable music score. Like there are themes in there. I can think of like 3 or 4 different songs where if you play that, people are like, "Hey, that's like a Halo song. I know that." You
Yeah.
know, and they played the Gregorian chant, which I think people would have felt really probably a little robbed if they didn't do it anyway, just because that's one of the so iconically Halo music masterpieces, if you will, um, for Halo. But like, I'm kind of with you. Like, I think they could have done more with the music. Like, and I understand. Like, I definitely get the feeling like this is something different. Like, this is not the games. This is not the books. This is something different. Some just like a third piece to be consumed elsewhere that only ties in by name, really.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with them taking some creative liberties, but like if you want to instill your already existing fan base, like toss them some of these things that you know that they're looking for. Like
Mm-hmm.
give them, especially
Yeah.
in the first episode when you're trying to build that rapport, like now's your time to do it. Like show them this is still the thing you know and love. Here's something that you know and love. Like you said, inspire some of those feelings that you had when you played the campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't want to do it through the ones that you yourself, your studio didn't make, like that's fine. Put it through some of the other games that you've made. There are plenty of iconic
Mm-hmm.
musical scores, if you will, that can be used here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the music is like you said, Matt. It's very generic, and I think that's goes without saying. That's kind of I guess a big problem that I have with the show is that it just feels very generic. It
Yep.
feels like this is just bland, tasteless sci-fi, is what it is.
Yeah.
And we kind of get into that a little bit more when we're, they when Kwan Ha she's recovered after the whole battle, and
She's the only survivor.
she's
Everybody
the
else
only
is dead.
survivor, and they're taking. I don't know what happened. Like, see, this is what I don't get is that Master Chief is on a Pelican or something alone with her, but somehow the other Spartans made it back just fine.
Yeah, there was that was a
What
weird
was the reason for
disconnect.
that?
There was a weird disconnect there too. So he touched the Forerunner object. He starts seeing some memories resurfaced, which, by the way, in this timeline, it's chemically induced, like brainwashing or something like that. I forget how they described it, right? So they don't know they were kidnapped kids that were trained to be super soldiers. They're just like, give me orders. What is it? Tell me how high to jump type situation, right?
Right.
But when they come out of the cave, Quan Ha got knocked down by Invisible Elite, which, by the way, I'm curious to see if that ends up being the Arbiter in the future, if he's in this show. But she gets knocked down. He tells the rest of the Silver Team, like, hey, you guys can head home being Reach. I'll take Quan Ha in the Condor, which, if I remember my vehicles and stuff, it's basically just a souped up Pelican that I think has a slip space drive, I believe. But again, it's also a silver timeline, so what I know might not be real in this one. But anyways, so yeah, it was just so odd that there was just this weird disconnect. I mean, it was convenient in the sake that it gave time for us to get the next couple scenes, right? That it
Right.
was just all of a sudden Silver Team was back on Reach and Chief was alone in the Condor with Quan Ha. And yeah, but I guess let's dig into that first. They're all on their way back. Silver Team's already at Reach, but we do get a scene at Reach prior to a lot of this happening, or the stuff with the trip, where we meet Halsey and Parengoski, which are two big. Halsey obviously is big from the show. Parengoski is probably more from the lore. I'm not sure where Oni fits into this timeline, but she was kind of the leader of Oni, a very like cloak and dagger, mischievous, like scheming, like really like you don't want to mess with this woman,
Right.
type
it's
thing.
a secret operations, organization of the UNSC.
Correct.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you get they're on their way back with Quan Ha, and everybody seems to know that he has a survivor of this militia group. They try to make contact with her, and I guess they sent Miranda Keyes, who is now a scientist, to try and do some politicking with her to get her to say, hey, like, the Spartans saved me, they're totally cool, like I'm happy that the Spartans saved me. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm gonna tell them that the Spartans killed my family and the Spartans are evil and all this sort of stuff. And it's so
it's cringe.
It was just cringe. It felt like it was like two teenagers just bitching at each other.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like teenagers just bitching at each other.
Yeah, and like that's what and that's what it was like. And so like I guess because Quan Ha, they can't just lock her away somewhere. They give Master Chief the order that he has to kill her. So they gotta like stuff her away, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. They just decide that they gotta order 66 this later, or whatever they call it. I don't remember
Article
what it
72. But
they got
in
order
my mind,
66.
I'm like, oh, it's just like, oh, this is just order 66. They wanted some cool name for it, but
yeah.
I mean, I truly thought they were going to basically like internment camp her, like make her into like military robot. They already proved they can do that. They can take people from birth and do that. Maybe it's just harder when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, true.
It just made no sense. And I mean, even kind of the interaction we had with, around the same time where they're showing with the relationship with Halsey and Parengoski, they're talking about, is Chief okay? What happened to him? And and what is this Forerunner object? And it was just the interaction between those two characters kind of threw me off as well, because as I mentioned, Parengoski is supposed to be this, leader of this, super secretive cloak and dagger part of the UNSC, and Halsey is supposed to be this insanely smart, creative, devious, doctor that or scientist that, she kidnapped kids, she built super soldiers,
right,
and she kind of manipulated or worked her way, or she was never actually part of the UNSC, if I remember correctly. She was just kind of an outside scientist person brought in to won the bid for this project. And the characters were just so weak. It was just really weird. The interaction almost felt like Parengoski was, an angry mom to come in and yell at the teenage Halsey for
right.
You're like your puppy dog, pooped on the floor.
Your Spartans are pooping on the couch again.
And it was such a weird interaction from these two characters supposed to be strong and again have those different characteristics that I mentioned for both of them. And it was just such an odd feeling to see these two, like I don't know. It was just they came across as very weak characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and their motivations are not clearly outlined either of what they're trying to do. Like I mean, you kind of get the idea that Halsey is trying to maintain her pet project, which is the Spartan program. She gets criticized for the Spartan program by Perengoski. I think she even gets criticized about it a little bit from Captain Keyes too. But
Mhm.
they basically they're trying to, you got Halsey trying to do this sort of dog and pony show to justify why the Spartans are a good thing. And
Yeah.
so they have all this bickering back and forth, and it's so lame. Like the writing is so lame at this part that it's just like a whole bunch of whining and complaining about the Spartan project when it's like, oh yeah, like look at how effective they were against the Covenant. They wanted, Quan Ha to say something about that, but yeah, she doesn't want to do it. And so they decide to kill her. And for some reason, like after they do that, Captain Keyes is talking to his daughter, and he gives her kind of like oh, what she asks him, well, what are they going to do with her? She's not going to comply, and yada yada yada. He's just like, they're gonna
Order
take her
such and such.
out, wink wink. And he just like gives it up that they're gonna do a government execution or an assassination on her. And it's just like, why would you tell
Oh.
a scientist this? Like, why would you
There must
disclose
be
that?
there must be no like clearance levels or
Well, that's what I was gonna say. That's the other thing. That's impressive. She's like what, 15, and she's like got these massive like clearance levels, and
yeah.
her dad's not worried about getting court-martialed for sharing something that hush hush.
Which
Yeah.
is insane because like the second that Master Chief gets this order, he starts having more of these, he keeps touching that artifact that he finds and gets more and more of these visions, and he's all of a sudden, I have a conscience now. I got conscience. Oh, sweet. I can't kill this lady even though she is a complete brat and I was ordered to kill her. I can't do it. I
And
can't
she's
do
a
it.
stranger, and she stands against everything that I stand for, and against me just doing what I do, right? Like,
Yeah,
she hates Spartans.
Right, and Master Chief just like pulls this weird 180 to where he is now he is now the most emotionally, like he's the most empathetic human on the in space now. And so all of a sudden he decides he doesn't want to kill her, and because he's defying this order and all he's doing is just landing at Reach, they decide, oh, well, if Master Chief is not going to kill her, then we gotta kill Master Chief. Like we can't be having this. It's just like,
Well,
this is extreme. Like
it was well, let me take it into my own hands. The UNSC side, Perengoski and Captain Keyes are like, well, let's just take the oxygen out of the Condor. Again, convenient they can do that remotely.
Yep.
And then it was like they still wanted Chief alive, so it was like, let's drop his oxygen and his suit down. Again, convenient that there's just so much control over all of this stuff. And it was just like, and again, convenient again. Chief starts to pass out. Quan passes out in his arms, and they're laying on the floor. And somehow he's able to come to, and oh look, the little dials for turning the oxygen back on just happen to be within arm reaches.
I just have to pop the hatch and turn the oxygen back on. Easy.
So one thing I want to say about that though is that I think that although it's convenient that they have control over him and stuff like that, like I actually kind of bought it. And the reason I bought it is because if you think about it, right? They do kind of hint to this. Like he is a huge, like they talk about how he's like the biggest military asset that they have. And like they talk, they've kind of spent all this time building how deadly these things can be and all that kind of stuff. I honestly would feel a little cheated if the government didn't essentially put a kill switch in there, right?
Yeah.
Because in fact, I'm a little disappointed that it's literally like, to stop the government, take off helmet. Like
we haven't even got to that part, but yeah,
that's kind of the thing, right? Is like I understood it and I bought it in the sense that like I expected that there's going to be something that they can do to kill switch him because that they don't know what he's going to do, and just as humanity is, he's unpredictable, and they can't, even the best trained soldier can't be depended on to follow 100% of the time, because at the end of the day, he's human. And I think that's a good thing too. And I think that's kind of what they were trying to do, is like play off his humanity. Although it just felt like, cue the anime bang toss, I'm angsty now too, and I defy you because it's bad. You know,
killing is wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like I bought it. I'll admit I bought it, but I do agree with you. There's a lot of this is one of those things like I don't know how much to share and what I think are conveniences and lazy writing, but like that too is kind of on my list of like I said, it's to get rid of government power, just take off helmet.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Well, I mean, like,
to unpack that a little bit,
Yep.
so let's just talk about that. The grand reveal, right? Like this was something that was making waves on articles and in the YouTube space all over, is that Master Chief is taking off his helmet. Holy shit, like this is a big deal. This has never happened before in the games. We're going to see Master Chief's face. And so the internet shits itself, people get skeptical, all that. So the grand reveal happens. Quan Ha is all pissy with Master Chief because she don't like Master Chief, she don't like Spartans. And that's because gets revealed that Master Chief killed her mom or something like that. From it sounded like like an accident or something or whatever, but he was on a mission, you know.
Because of reasons.
Reasons.
I'm mad at you specifically.
Yeah.
I need to channel my Mr. Torg a little bit better.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is as they're on their way to deliver Quan Ha, you know, he finds out that, you know, he has to kill her. The government wants her dead. He doesn't want to do it. And so he tries to convince her to trust him. And to do that, I guess, he takes off his helmet. I guess that is what he had to do to take off. He had to take off his helmet to reveal his face to Quan Ha, or I guess the audience, that he is totally trustworthy and you should totally believe him now because I took my helmet off.
Is that what they were trying to do? Was build trust? Because I just got that as the manipulation thing. Like I know people where the like, if you don't do what they want, they're just like, okay, well, I guess there's no will for me to live. Here, let me help you kill me. You know, like, that's kind of what I got. It wasn't a trust me. It was a, like, whatever. Like, you're going to die anyway. I feel bad for you. Just kill me, too. I'm a bad person.
I think it was a trust. It was him trying to build trust with Quan.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because, like, she had she grabbed a battle rifle off the rack, and she was pointing it at him, and Master Chief's kind of like, well, you're not gonna pierce my titanium armor. This is Mark 6 Mjolnir and blah 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 blah. And you're not. And then he takes off his helmet, and sadly enough, a second helmet was not revealed.
Nope.
It was an actual human face.
That's the end of the episode. Yeah. That's the end of the. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, and then it's revealed. Master Chief looks exactly like Pablo Schreiber. That was the big reveal, is that like there was nothing interesting about what they didn't put any makeup on or prosthetics or like anything that shows that he was like either in a suit for a really long time. Like they didn't make him like pale or anything like that from always wearing a suit. No scarring from his, you know, augmentation surgeries or anything like that. Hell, I don't even think they colored his eyes.
That was going to be my thing, is like I was expecting a lot. Like I was trying to see if he actually had naturally green eyes in the, like, more natural green eyes in the show, but like I was expecting a little bit more vibrant green to kind of, you know, another one of those, like, you know, this is the lore, right? Here's something for you, you know, the thing we all know.
Yeah, here, let me, like, if I could, I can't take a screenshot, but I'm looking at his face right now. It doesn't even look like his eyes are green. Like they did nothing with it. It seriously just looks like Pablo. Just his face, and he's got a little bit of a scruffy beard. He's got a little bit of a neck beard going on. And honestly, like, I wasn't going to be upset with them doing a face reveal because I didn't know really what to expect with it. Like, I wasn't really up in arms that the show is taking the liberty of taking his helmet off. But like, God, like they did it on the first episode, and they did it in such a bullshit way that like, he just has to, like, they had this little conflict just as a contrived reason for him to take off his helmet so that he can defy the UNSC and also defy the government, because apparently taking off his helmet stops them from being able to remote to SSH into his suit. So they can't get into the suit because the helmet's off now.
Yeah, that's what I didn't like about it too. Is like I felt like I kind of wanted a little bit more of like the Mando sense, where it's like, you know, in the Mandalorian, right? Like it's against their religion to like take off their helmet. I kind of wanted something like that, so it was more of like a kind of moment. Like with the whole exchange of like, well, maybe you should, you could just go through my head and just shoot me in the head because you won't get through my armor. Like that felt like it cheapened it for me, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
felt
I
like such
wasn't
a
on
like a such a contrived exchange just to get
Yeah,
him to take his helmet off is what it felt like. And then all of us like after that, it killed it for me. I felt like that was such a big buzzkill when he revealed his face like that because there was nothing special about it. Like there was nothing interesting about it to show that he was some kind of a super soldier. He literally just looks like Pablo cosplaying as Master Chief after he takes
Yeah.
his helmet off.
And that was again, like you said, when they mentioned this a few weeks ago, it was like, okay, whatever. My problem then was it ended up being what exactly happened is they were just going to do it as early as possible. There was going to be no meaning to it, right? Like you were saying, Heather, there was no like Mando moment where there was obviously there's no religion for Spartans taking off their helmet, but it's
right.
just a thing that they haven't done in the game. So it's, you don't know what Chief looks like. And it was just like, hey, well, obviously it was done for the reasons for now they can just, do the whole Marvel thing where he can just take his helmet off whenever so we can see his face in future scenes and episodes, so they wanted to do it early, I'm sure, to allow them to do that. But there was no meaning behind it. There was no big reveal. There wasn't for people like, the fans that have been around for a while going, well, what does he look like? Always getting teased little bits here and there, right, over the years. And it was just a big letdown. And again, this kind of goes, my argument for Pablo Schreiber, who, I mean, he's a good actor. But it's very similar to some of these other characters like Halsey, Parangoski, Keys. There was nothing. Master Chief, when he took his helmet off, looked more kind of confused and like, right, there was no like, this is somebody who's very tactically, thinks very tactically. He's always like, hey, I need to do the right thing. I need to be one step ahead of this person. What's the next thing to do? Like this guy just looked kind of confused, and he's like, just shoot me in the head, yeah, so you can trust me, or whatever,
Right.
so we can trust each other. And it just, there was nothing behind it, and it just was a big letdown to me. Again, I kind of came to terms with the fact that we were going to see his face, and again, it kind of made sense. Again, that's why they're, you know, Mando does it, why Marvel does it with all the superheroes. They're constantly taking helmets off so they can show off their highly
Right.
paid actors. But
Right.
it was just the way it was done, and the way, and yeah, it just meant nothing, and it was just rather a big letdown. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it just felt like a big wet fart is all that it felt like. Is
yeah,
that like they like you can tell they were trying to make this a big deal too, because like, he starts going after the helmet and then the music starts to swell up and then he's taking his helmet off extremely slowly and then slowly drops the helmet and then it just reveals his face and you're like,
yeah,
you mean Master Chief looks exactly like Pablo Schreiber? No way.
yeah.
Like, that's
No, it was just,
no way.
yeah, it was so odd that they didn't do anything. They don't
Right.
have to do any like deep scarring, but anything to make him just look like, yeah, not somebody cosplaying in a suit. But
Right, because they even had like even when they did the Mandalorian face reveal, he had like helmet hair. Like they gave him like greasy looking helmet hair to show that like the dude doesn't take his helmet off like
yeah,
ever. He's just got a nice, nice military cut, but apparently he leaves the beard on. I guess
hmm,
Master Chief is not a clean shaven
Yeah,
individual.
that's what surprised me too. If he's military and he has the military cut, why doesn't he have to shave the beard? Because I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to have that in the military. But
yeah. I guess it depends on how long he's in the suit, because they could definitely go for
um,
very long periods of time in those suits
I
in the
mean,
Yeah.
books.
but
But
then his hair should be different too, though. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, maybe that's too nitpicky.
yeah, I don't know.
Well, beyond that, I mean, to kind of close out the episode, all they did is just like he arrives at Reach. Halsey gives her other Spartans the order that if they try to kill Master Chief, that they just go and
they
slaughter
got it. Yeah,
any UNSC that tries to do it. And so that's what they
which
do. They don't kill anybody, but they threaten all the UNSC dudes trying to enter the Pelican that they were in, or the
yeah.
Condor. They try
Yeah,
to
it was such a weird scene because Quan and Chief are trying to take over the ship from the AI. Then Parangoski orders, or Keys orders them to shoot down the Condor, which again, good thing they got the weird EMP blast
Right.
to
They have
knock
this
it
big
down.
rail gun, and all it does is it just kind of
Yep.
turns the power off, I guess.
And then we had the big moment where they like I said this to you guys while we were watching it felt like like an 80s movie, right? If you remember my favorite musical of all time, Blues Brothers, the end when they like the National Guard and stuff come to Chicago, and it's hut 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 hut. They had
Yeah.
all these Marines like come in, and then they're like, then it's that whole thing where they're all pointing at the Condor. It was very cheesy. And then the other thing is like you got all this crazy control, and yeah, I guess you did just EMP blast the Condor, but you're about to put explosives on the door to blow it open so you can get inside. It was like, there's got to be a better way to do this, right? And instead of blowing up part of the ship to get, I don't know. It was just such a weird scene.
Or instead of just like sitting there staring at it, why are they not trying to do things to disable the ship from being able to
Yeah.
leave?
Even
Because that's
more,
exactly
yeah.
what happens. They get power back to the ship and then they just peace out of there.
Yeah,
No electrical blasts or anything like that. They just leave.
yep.
No
Chief
ships follow
touches.
him either. They said no ships after him.
Yeah.
He just fucking leaves. The most valuable military asset, leaving with a wanted, like someone that needs to be assassinated, and they just kind of let him go.
Well, I mean, we keep failing to mention too the Forerunner object, which nobody knows, right? Because they realize early on in the show, this is where you start getting the Forerunner introduced, right? Oh, this isn't Covenant, and this isn't human. What is it? And obviously, it's what's triggering his weird little his memories, and he's able to recall whatever a dog and his parents at a picnic or whatever it was, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that.
But yeah, and then they all of a sudden the Forerunner thing heals the ship after, and it just takes off.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
they don't have anything like a tractor beam or anything like that to keep them in or anything. They don't have any
Yeah.
tech or anything.
And again,
they
like
can control the chip.
they
but-
don't have ships even watching over the ship.
yeah,
Like, you would
'Cause
think
it was-
they would call over like other ships in the area to be like, "Hey, don't let
Well,
this ship leave."
they were there too, because if you remember, as it was coming in, why
Oh, that's right. It's the thing turns
was
the power
being
off to
escorted.
everything. That's right.
No, the on the way in, as
Oh,
Chief
right,
and
yeah.
Guan are trying to take over the from the AI and take manual control of the Condor. It was being escorted. I think these were Pelicans, whatever. Pelicans and Condors, kind of look the same in the show right now. But anyways, it had an escort in, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
more
Yeah, they're on a
convenient.
giant military base and they just kind of just skirt away
And it's
because
just out.
they can.
Yep.
Because the script says so.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of because the script says so.
Yeah.
It's just.
And then there's your credits. And then that is episode 1 right there in a nutshell.
We did miss. I don't even want to call this a key part of the episode, but we did miss one scene of the episode which felt forced in the way that they just wanted to introduce these characters. But there was a very short scene where we are on High Charity, which actually looked pretty good,
yeah.
right? Some of the
Right,
Covenant stuff.
right.
We see the key ship. We get a view from inside a room inside High Charity that has overlooking out into the city in High Charity with the key ship, the Forerunner ship from like Halo 2 in the middle of it, and it looks pretty solid. But we find out that Mercy comes into the room, talks to this new character, which I don't think she was technically introduced in the episode, but her name's Maki. I'm going to say her name is.
Yep.
And they just had a weird interaction where they're talking about reading books, and the artifact wasn't quite where you said it was, but it was there, and the humans stole it. And that was kind of the scene. It felt kind of like we just want to put these guys in here to introduce them because they're going to be part later. But it didn't really leave anything to me for the audience to go, "Oh, I'm excited to see." What do we want to see more, like bedtime stories with Maki and Mercy? I mean, that's what it sounded like they're setting up for.
It seemed like it was a bit more subtle than that, because it seems like Mercy kind of is onto this Maki person as though like they're trying to abandon their humanity, but they're also trying to like learn more about themselves. It sounds like this Maki person has been living with the Covenant for a long time, is what it sounded like. And so he's just like he like implants this idea into her head. Like he's like, "Oh, so you're reading like all these human stories? Yeah, it makes sense. You want to know your enemy, so you got to understand, and you have to understand your enemy. That makes a lot of sense, right?"
What if oh god, this is gonna be so bad.
And she's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. I'm reading up on my enemy. Yeah.
Hold on. I want to make a prediction here because they're fun, especially to see if I A, remember it by the end of the series, and B, if I'm right, it'll be just sad. But what if they're planting the seed for Maki to the whole episode? She's going to be like, oh, I'm helping the Covenant. Humans are bad. But like the last episode or two, she's going to like find her humanity and she's going to be like, I'm human. I want to help them. And she
Probably.
turns, oh, God, that's going to be so bad if that happens.
I know that. Yep. You probably called it. That's exactly what's probably going to happen.
Oh, no. That's
Joke's
not
on you,
good, man.
Joke's on you, Matt. She's actually just a humanoid alien. She's not actually a human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so overall, I mean, what were your impressions? I mean, I think we've kind of scathed this thing quite a bit already, but
yeah,
like, are you talking about like rate it with your different fires here, or are you talking like
give it a score of 1 to 10? What would you put the starting episode of Halo the TV series?
I mean, for me,
episode 1.
for me, like, if you're coming at this as a person who doesn't know much about Halo or doesn't remember much about Halo, is kind of fallen out of it, I think you'll find this very average, like around a 5, 6 area maybe for some of the scenes or something like that. There's a lot of convenience in there, and I don't think it takes it doesn't take a lot to go, okay, this writing's kind of lazy, okay. But I think if you don't you guys are very versed in the lore, to somebody who probably doesn't know the lore, I think they'll think it's probably just an average TV show. It's not going to wow you. You're not going to hate it, but you may or may not come back. For somebody who knows this a little bit more, not anywhere to the near amounts that you did, I'd still kind of put this at like a 3-4 for me. Like in the ratings that you put it, I put that at like a forest fire. It's kind of bad. That like I said, anybody with like half an analytical brain can probably figure out some of the problems with it, and it's confusing in sometimes, and it's just kind of awkward at others, and you, like I said, you spend a lot of time scratching your head going, I don't remember that. Like, it's not for that audience. So because it's not for me, I kind of put it at like a 3-4, because if honestly some of the things that you two are bringing up, I don't know if I would have caught on to all of those, if I'm being honest.
All right. Matt, what do you think?
I mean, I think our audience, if they listen to the podcast, kind of know where I sit with a lot of this modern Halo stuff. But I mean, I was hoping, I don't hate Halo and I don't hate 343, and I was cautiously optimistic going into this, hopeful because I want it to be good, right? But it's just it really hurts, and where I thought I might be able to buy into it more, or just a little, like, I don't want to just like I said earlier in the episode, oh, there's Green Halo Man, he's cool, I know him, right? Like as I mentioned too, is like the fact that there's not even like a lot more sound effects, a lot of the music, a lot of the characters just feel samey. You're not clear on what their motivations are. They're supposed to be something, but their actions and their words don't really kind of match with these, like I was saying with Parangoski and Halsey and Keyes, right? They even Master Chief, right? It's just a lot of that stuff just doesn't match, and they feel generic or boring. And as much as I want to like this show, I'd say if we're using a 1 to 10 scale, I mean, funny enough, my rating's not going to be too far off of Heather's, but I'd say at least first episode is probably about a 2 or 3. I think potentially maybe what could have hurt the score was I went and watched it through a second time, and you start seeing a lot more of those holes. You start seeing a lot more of those issues. You don't have that. What I think caught a lot of people in this first episode, and why it's reviewed relatively well amongst people that maybe aren't diehard Halo fans, is the fact that they're very easily entertained by plasma pistols blowing off heads and legs, and energy swords going through humans, right? That is not gonna lie, that's very entertaining, but right, you get people excited for something, but when you sit down and think about it, there's not a lot of substance there. It's rather boring. And yeah, it's generic,
right?
So,
especially after like your second viewing, right? Is that once all the hype kind of wears off, it's just like, oh, this is kind of
And that's a big
bland.
reason why I do this, especially for this show. But and very few. I don't do it for every show I watch. But as I mentioned, I used to do this with Game of Thrones because there you would catch more stuff. And again, similar type of thing here. I started seeing a little bit more, and unfortunately, a lot of what I was seeing was a lot of those holes, a lot of the logic that just didn't make sense, a lot of the characters and lack of motivation or matching up with their intentions with their actions and different things like that. Yeah, it's just two, three, if I'm feeling generous.
Sure. All right. Well, I mean, I think I'm going to give it a 4.
Ooh.
Coming at the perspective of, similar to what Heather said, it is just painfully average. It is very generic, very average. There's a lot of conveniences. They have contrivances for, like I said, when we were talking about how he takes his helmet off, or we don't even know why the Spartans were even there at Madrigal in the first place. They just kind of show up because they did, like
Same
it's
thing
just,
with the Covenant. We don't
yeah,
know why they're there.
right. Like it's just, they just kind of, everything just kind of happens because the script says it happens. With that said, I mean, I think, the first 15 minutes of it, like I said, were the best part of the episode. It was fun to watch a bunch of people getting slaughtered by elites. It was kind of fun seeing how powerful the elites looked versus just average humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that they kind of play into that more as the series goes on, is that, these things are supposed to be really, really powerful. I mean, there is a reason why, in the Halo series, humans are losing. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole reason, is because these Covenant dudes are powerful. But I knock it down a point from being just a straight 5, because as a Halo fan, you really could just replace this with any, like, there's not a whole lot that's truly Halo about this.
Yeah.
Other than just, like, yeah, you could throw in the names of the characters. You can call, blonde lab coat lady Dr. Halsey, or you could call her Dr. whatever the fuck, because it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't make any difference. She doesn't
Yeah.
seem to be anything like the character of Dr. Halsey. Same with Parangoski. Same with Captain Keyes, for that matter. Like, he just seems like generic military dad is basically what it is.
Yep.
So there's not a whole lot that I've seen out of the first episode so far to make me really buy into this as a Halo series. Yeah, you could just replace Master Chief with Doom Guy and it wouldn't really make a difference.
Right. So I must be like much harder than you. And also I want to quickly say that I guess we do kind of know why the elites were there. We kind of discussed that. I was
They're
thinking
looking for
about
the
that.
artifact.
They were looking for the artifact. Yeah, I said that. But or we said that. But anyway, going back to this, like, I kind of picked those things, picked what I picked just because I thought, like I said, I thought it was painfully average. And I think exactly what you said. You turn your brain off, right? You're going to love it. You start thinking about it. You start comparing it to lore. You're going to hate it. And that's, like, I'm surprised you gave it a 5 or a 4 or 5 area. Like, I
gave
really,
it a 4.
A 4. Yeah. I'm very surprised, honestly. And I honestly thought Matt was going to lambast this a little bit and be like, this is a 1 or a 2.
Oh, I
Like,
could shit on it
No,
more,
because
but it was
there was good things about
watchable.
it. Like, yeah, there
Yeah.
were some cool things about it. Like, I did like the fact that they did use some of the Halo sound effect. Like, when they did incorporate some of the Halo stuff, like, hearing the shields come back, although they didn't really play a cool effect or anything like that when his
Mhm.
shields came back. That would have been pretty sweet too to see.
Yeah.
Some of the prop guns looked really ridiculous, but it was
Oh,
kind of nice to see those. High Charity looked fantastic. The
Yep.
Prophet of Mercy looked astounding. I'm guessing that's where all the budget went.
That's where
was
9.9
rendering-
million of that episode went into him.
was rendering High Charity and the Prophet of Mercy. Like,
Yep.
the way that he delivered his dialogue too, I thought was like, this guy comes off as very, like, subtle and conniving. Like he definitely has this sort of, like, wordplay thing going on, and I was like, oh, like, this actually sounds kind of cool. I want to see more of this. So
Mhm.
that's what I was really excited about. But yeah, like, the rest of it was just mediocre. Like, it was just generic. That's why I
Yeah.
gave it a 5, but then I knock it down to a point, because for being a Halo fan, there's not a whole lot that's very Halo about the show.
Yeah.
I guess
Well,
I kind of agree with that then. Like that's kind of what I was trying to get at with mine. Like I was trying to, you guys had like 5 rankings you sent me earlier, and I basically just multiplied that by 2, and that's the range I gave. Because like
Sure.
I thought it was very mediocre at best. Like it's not something I'm like, you should never watch, right? That's why I didn't give it a 1 or a 2. But I guess I agree with that.
Yeah.
I still just kind of keep rolling this question around in my head is if this is for to try to bring on new people, new fans to the franchise is, and I know sometimes this is the draw of shows and stories is, like, oh, I want to know more, but like, damn, I would be so confused, with this first episode because they just don't talk a lot about stuff. And again, I think it made sense to people like us because we've at least played the games, and obviously then, me and the lore and blah, blah, blah. Right. So if this is a show that was really there to bring in new fans, I'd really like to, I'll have to look.
I think
Maybe
a
I can
lot of
find
people
some.
are. Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to dip out after this first
Yeah.
episode because I
I,
think a lot of them will be like, okay, after the first 15 minutes, it was just really boring. Like I
which
don't just
is this, it's
yeah.
a scary thought because unfortunately we're not press, so we only have the first episode. But majority of the people that have press passes to this show got the first 2, and early reviews of episode 2 are not good. It says it falls off hard and falls off fast. So to me, that's gonna a lot of those people that are like, oh, this first episode kind of, oh, what is this Halo stuff? Who is this green guy and these weird Krogan looking bros? They're thick as hell. I like it. But like this next episode could really cause the viewership and anybody that might have been interested. Again, I'm just kind of guessing at this point because we've never seen it and taken the internet's word, for this, which, all the kids should know that trust everything you read on the internet. But, yeah, it's just gonna be interesting. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, we're looking forward to watching the rest of the show and giving it its fair try, but it's not
yeah,
off to a very strong start.
no, but
Cool. Well,
yeah,
I think we should wrap it up there then.
yeah. Any last thoughts, comments?
I think we've pretty much beat this to death.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think it's important that in the coming things, like just keeping in mind all the things that they did right too, because
yeah,
like you pointed out, Rich, like there were a lot of cool things in here.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
there was some cool stuff in there.
I felt like this episode is a little bit bash heavy, but I mean, you're right. You're right. So there are some cool
always
things.
right here at the Campfire Gaming.
Yeah.
Of course,
we
I
thought
should have
this
known.
show was gonna be garbage, and it turns out to be garbage. So
Yeah, we're always right. That doesn't mean we always want to be right.
right, we don't always want to be right.
But yeah, with that, as we mentioned, we will be coming out with weekly episodes where we review there's 9 episodes in total, so you'll get 8 more of these episodes over the next 2, I guess probably about 2 months here. So look forward to that. You'll also get our regularly scheduled podcasts every Saturday at the 7 a.m.s. I guess Central. I almost said Eastern, 7 a.m. Central. But Heather, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully
Yes,
we get
thank
you
you.
on in some future episodes as well.
It
Thanks
was
for
great to
inviting
have you
me.
on.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, as usual, check us out at campfiregamingpodcast.com. You can find all our links to our socials like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can find links to our Discord where we have wonderful nerdy chats throughout the week, sometimes coordinate some gaming play sessions, and probably do some little early reviewing chat on Halo as well. But thanks for joining us, and we look forward to having you next week, or I guess next episode, whenever you're listening to this. But with that, we'll see you next time around the campfire.